Today we are going to discuss about managing stress. There are two blocks in this bpcs 186, and in block 1 today we are going to discuss, and in block 1 there are 4 units, and we are going to discuss today 1 2 3 units, 1 2 and 3 units. So we'll see how we can learn about the managing the stress. So unit 1 is stress introduction. So we'll see the objectives of this chapter unit: introduction, concept of stress, nature of stress, types of stress, symptoms of stress, sources of stress, and measurement of stress. So what are the learning objectives? So you should learn about the stress, the concept should be clear to you, and you should understand the nature of the stress, and you should know that the from where the we get the stress, the what are the sources, what are the reasons for stress, and how we can measure the stress. So stress has a negative impact on both psychological and physiological well-being, we all know that. If stress is not identified and managed in time or on a regular basis, it can have detrimental effect on the individual. The functioning and productivity decreases under the stress. It can also have a negative impact on loved ones like parents, spouse, children, friends, and even colleagues. The term stress has been derived from stringere, that is a Latin word and means to draw tight. In physical science, it has been described in terms of pressure, strain, or force. The initial conceptualization of stress mainly focused on stress as an external stimulus. In some definitions, stress has been called response to certain demands and a process which threatens the existence of a living organism. So Lazarus and Folkman, 1984, define stress as a particular relationship between the person and the environment that is appraised by the person as taxing or exceeding his resources and endangering his well-being. So here we have to understand that this is the meaning given by the person. The person perceive the environment as taxing or cannot manage with his or her limited resources. This definition emphasizes the relationship between person and the environment. From the Western perspective, stress denotes absence or lack of inner peace. So, if there is lack of peace, then we can say that the person is under stress in our country. Stressor can be defined as a stimulus event that places a demand on an organism for some kind of adaptive responses. So, stressors can be external or internal, from the environment and within our mind, that is, thought or perception may create emotion, thought, and perception may create stress. Further, stressors can be categorized into physical, psychological, environmental, social, and as a life event. There are certain life events which are not under our control that may also cause stress. Stressors could range from adjusting to change, financial issues, and problems. Life events like separation, divorce, illnesses, or death of a loved one, managing varied roles and responsibilities, facing frequent challenging situations, and even technological changes and development. So life events plays a major role in creating stress, and that leads to certain psychological problems. So this can be understood from this slide, like there are many things which causes stress: responsibility, interpersonal conflict, school work or social work, or work related environment, emotional, or work too hard, labor too much, then life events, physical condition, role role stressors, lots of things may lead to stress. Now let us understand the nature of the stress. Stress is essential for keeping us motivated to work in a certain direction. We all know that if there is no stress, no one can work. So some amount of stress is required. However, when stress experienced exceeds the optimal level of an individual, the individual may find it exceedingly difficult to cope with it. Detrimental effects on the well-being, performance, and productivity is noticed due to stress. So we can understand the stress on the basis of its types. There are three types: eustress, new stress, and distress. So eustress is considered as a very good stress. It motivates us, caused by a positive response to a desired stressors, and it requires to show the optimal performance. Whereas new stress, when stress is neither helpful nor harmful. So this may not be helpful, but it is definitely not harming anyone. But this stress, it basically causes lots of problem. So this stress occurs when the arousal experienced by the individual is very high or very low. Can be acute or chronic stress. Acute stress is intense but does not last for a prolonged period of time. Means when there is a for the short period of time there is a stress. For example, examination stress. So this stress is only during the examination. But academic stress may be lasting for a year or 2 years. So chronic stress may not be as intense but may exist for a prolonged period of time, and lots of issues, physical, psychological, may be related to chronic stress. Hypertension is also an example of this. Depression, anxiety are the example of chronic stress. Okay, now let us see the what are the symptoms of stress. So generally, if there is a much stress, more stress, there must be some symptoms. So let us see these symptoms in different group, in different categories. So like physical symptoms. So you may find the person is having rapid pulse, pounding heart, increased perspiration, tensing of arms and leg muscles, shortness of breath, gritting of teeth, headaches, indigestion, numbness, dry mouth, pain, cold sweat, abdominal cramps. So these are the physical symptom manifestation of stress. Let us see the psychological symptoms. So, if the person is under stress, the person may be feeling very upset, inability to concentrate. So, if the students are under stress, it will be very difficult for them to concentrate on their study. Irritability, loss of self confidence, worry, difficulty in making decisions, racing thoughts, absent mindedness. So sometimes, if parents are not aware about the child that the child is under stress, so they may fight with the child, or they may give lots of environment. You should not be irritable. You should concentrate on your work. You should not worry. Don't think like that. But such things won't help the child. The emotional symptoms of stress are anxiety disorder. The person may develop depression, anger, guilt feeling, jealousy, shame, impatience, and suicidal feelings. Under behavioral symptoms like deterioration in performance effectiveness, so the whatever performance is there, it may deteriorate. If the person is studying, the academic performance will deteriorate. If the person is working in some organization, the work performance will be affected. Then smoking or use of alcohol or other recreational drugs, because the stress is too much, so person want to get rid of that stress, and so the person starts smoking and using alcohol, so it reduces the stress. But y- use of any substance for reducing the stress or managing the stress is a maladaptive coping. It affects negatively in long term. Accident proneness: due to stress, the person may commit more accidents. Nervous mannerism like foot tapping, nail biting, lots of hand movement, increased or decreased eating, anorexia, increased or decreased sleeping, disruption, insomnia. The person may develop insomnia. The person may develop phobias, eating, walking, talking faster, poor time management, impaired speech, and checking rituals. Checking rituals like checking again and again the lock of the door, bolt of the door, fridge, gas knob, all these things are seen when the person is highly stressed. Let us discuss about the sources of stress, how the stress generate, how the person feels stress. So stress can be a result of personality factors that may make an individual prone to stress. So some individuals are temperamentally taking the things very seriously, so they are prone to stress. So they may develop some psychological problem, and there is a tendency to become stressful in each and every situation. Past experience, basic temperamental factors, perception of control over the situation play an important role. So, if you think you cannot control the situation is out of control, so this may lead to stress. Individuals with type A personality are more prone to stress than type B personality. We will discuss in our later section about the type A personality and other mm, related factors. So these are the sources of stress. So one of the sources, frustration also. So it occurs when a goal-oriented behavior of an individual is thwarted. You want to achieve a goal, you have set the goal you want to achieve, and due to certain reason you could not achieve. For example, you wanted to get 90% marks in your exams and you are preparing for that, but you could not get 90%, you just got 80%. So you may feel frustration. A wide range of environmental obstacles, both physical and social, and the internal factors in the form of personal limitations, biological conditions, and psychological barriers may lead to frustration to our needs, motives, and efforts. So, all these things may lead to frustration, may cause frustration in you. Conflict of motives. We all know that in a very well. If an individual has to choose between alternatives, and decision making can lead to stress. Conflict of motives can be of four different types. We all know that: approach conflict, avoidance conflict, approach avoidance conflict, and multiple approach avoidance conflict. So let us see in little bit detail about all these conflicts. So in approach, what happens? Individual has to choose between two goals that are positive and are similar, but he has to take only one. That he can't take both. For example, an individual may have to choose between two similar job opportunity, but he can take one. Like one job is very near and another job is giving more salary. Under avoidance, there are two goals that are similar but as opposed to approach conflict, and goals here are negative. The person does not want any of these two, but he has to take one. For example, an individual may have to choose between two things, however, he neither like any. For example, if you got less marks in 10th, you wanted to take uh, science, but you can't take. So there are two options. Either you can take BCom commerce, sorry, BCom. Either you take commerce or you can take arts, but you do not like any. So what you will, and your marks are not that you can take science. So this is avoidance conflict. You want to avoid both, but you have to take one because you have to complete 12th. Another is approach avoidance. Approach avoidance conflict, there is a single goal which is both positive and negative. For example, an individual taking up a job abroad may be excited about the opportunity, but also has to face the fact that he will have to stay away from the family. Okay, thus, this goal has both negative and positive consequences. Multiple approach avoidance. It may so happen that the conflicts faced by an individual are quite complex and they are combinations of approach and avoidance conflict. The conflicts are quite complex in nature and intertwined with each other. The individual has to choose between options that have both positive and negative consequences. For example, a student may have to choose between two educational opportunities, one of pursuing music that he is interested in, which will make his parents unhappy. Suppose he want to take music and parents are not willing. What he is, and the other of pursuing engineering, which will make his parents happy, but he's really not interested in it. So these are multiple approach avoidance. Let us understand about the pressure. Due to pressure also you feel stress. So pressure can be external or internal. External pressures are result of demands from the environment, responsibilities and obligations. Whereas internal pressures are caused by our own self for maintaining the picture of ourselves as we think we could and we should be. For example, if I want to show that I am a very good studious student, so I have to study a lot. I have to sacrifice the sports activities and other social interactions and gatherings. So that may again creates pressure. Other sources of stressors are life events, daily hassles, interpersonal relationship, and social conditions. Let us see this. So, under life events, stress can be caused due to varied life events. So, what are the life events? Life events are death of a loved ones, divorce or separation, losing one's job, legal cases, marriages, uh, shifting to house if you are staying in a rented house, getting less mark. Okay. Life events can lead to stress. Daily hassles. Daily hassles can also create stress, lack of time, work overload, daily roles, responsibilities and duties, traffic, commuting for a job, in a crowded train or bus, etc., considered as daily hassles, and these are also source of the stress. Interpersonal relationships, you know it, I think better way, because if there is some problem with the friends, it causes lots of stress. So issue related to interpersonal relationship in the context of family, work, or it could be with the peer group. So peer group actually affects too much. These issues may be the result of personality disorders, misunderstanding, violence, abuse, and less regard for the other person. So we have to learn how to maintain good interpersonal relationship without sacrificing ourselves. Social conditions. So conditions in which the individual lives, increased interpersonal competition, increased social pressure to perform well in wide variety of tasks, corporate demands, etc. So suppose if your social conditions like a very educated type of society where everyone is engineer, so when you are in 10th, there will be lots of pressure to study well till 12th maths and science stream, and then perform well in JEE and JEE advanced. Okay, so this pressure, why this pressure is because you stay in such social conditions Whereas those who stay in slums or villages, there may not be that much pressure on them. So this can affect well-being negatively. Now coming to the measurement of stress. How to measure the stress? So how we can, as we have discussed already, stress can be manifested through physical, psychological, emotional, and other ways. So physiological measures are there. We can measure blood pressure, pulse rate, breathing rate. Various instruments and machines are there. For instance, polygraph, biofeedback, and biochemical measures such as hormones. But there are limitations of these measures because physiological changes may occur due to some other reasons and not just because of stress. Create stress in the individual. So if the person may go for the such measures, so it may also cause stress, and these are the costly and time consuming. You have to pay lots of money for them. Psychological tests are there, we all know. So a measure of sample of behavior that is objective and systematic in nature is called psychological test. So it must be standardized, reliable, and valid. Could be self-report inventories. They are simple, less costly, and easy to administer. Issue related to social desirability and language, because if you use questionnaire, people may answer according to the social desirability. If they answer the way which others may approve. Individuals may not understand the language in which the test is available, or he may not comprehend certain statements or words. So there are certain limitations also with psychological tests, but there are lots of tests which are standardized, reliable, and valid, and they can be used without any hesitation. So there are checklists. A checklist can also be used to measure stress. For example, a checklist for major life events. We know a presumptive stressful life event inventory by Gurmeet Singh. The individual is asked to check the major life events from a list that the individual has undergone in a given period of time. In-depth information is collected from the individual face to face through interview. So if you want to collect in-depth interview, you have to do collect information. You have to do interview, but it is very time consuming, and sometimes it is structured, sometimes not structured. So, but interview, if you want to collect information through interview, it needs lots of training. Okay, now we are coming to unit 2, that is models of stress. In this unit, we are going to learn about the various models of stress. So, what are the models of stress? We'll see the fight and flight response, general adaptation syndrome, cognitive appraisal model, person environmental fit model, psychodynamic theory, genetic constitutional theory, and diathesis stress model. So let us see these models in a brief. So first we will discuss about the fight or flight response. So Cannon put forth the fight or flight response with regard to stress. According to Cannon, stress is an outcome of an environmental demand that was external and that led to an imbalance in the natural steady state of an individual. Body compass encompasses natural defense mechanisms that play a role in maintaining the homeostasis stasis or the natural steady state of an individual. So when an individual faces a situation that is threatening, he will either get ready to fight that threat or may flight or run away from the situation. So the physiological changes experienced by the person in a stressful situations include sweating, dry mouth, tensed muscles, and increased in blood pressure or pulse rate, rapid and deep breathing, dilated pupils, etc. The stimulation of sympathetic nervous system and endocrine system takes place. The flight and fight response is advantageous as it helps deal instantly with the situation. So if you see, for example, snake, so either you have to fight with the snake or you have to run away. So if you don't have anything like stick or you cannot fight. So you have to run away. So physiological changes during fight and flight response, like threatening situation, hypothalamus. So on the basis of brain, you can understand this. This will lead to sympathetic nervous system, then adrenal glands, it activate then certain hormones and chemical releases. So it also endocrine systems. Okay, so pituitary glands and certain hormones. So what happens? So either the person fight or flight. So, what is the limitation of this model in understanding stress? So, gender differences may exist in the blood pressure changes or almost all physiological changes. During the stress, women may display tend and be friend seeking social support, whereas men they try to remain alone. Another model is GS gas. So, Hans Selye has given this model. There are three stages that are experienced by an individual when he is in a situation that is stressful: alarm reaction, resistance, exhaustion. So, in stage one, alarm reaction, denoted by a decreased resistance to stress, similar to that of fight or flight response. The autonomic nervous system and endocrine system are activated by hypothalamus, and epinephrine and norepinephrine are released by the adrenaline glands. This can be termed as a counter shock when the defense mechanisms of an individual are activated as a result of expression of adrenocortical glands. The body is prepared to face the threatening situation. Increase in energy production due to cortisol, the body will transfer the energy to high demanding systems that are required in the situation at hand. For example, if you have seen snake, you will run away. So all energy, blood supply will be there in your legs. So you can do it quickly. In stage two, resistance. The adaptation is maximum and the equilibrium is restored. There is an adaptation on part of the individual. Individual resist the stimuli that create stress. The resistance to other stimuli decreases. A lot of energy is required, thus the non-essential functions are devoid of energy. Body tries to bring equilibrium. If the stress is still experienced and the defense mechanisms are inactive, then the individual will experience the third and last stage. So, stage 3 is exhaustion. So, there is a collapse of adaptive system, adaptive mechanisms. This is due to decrease in the physiological resources. When an individual experiences stress for a long period of time, the individual's physiological resources deplete. So all the resources. So what is the limitation of this model? It does not focus on the psychological or cognitive reactions to stress. Poor validity in individual context or in our Indian context. Release of certain hormones may differ based on the nature and intensity of the emotion. Then duration of exposure to stressor may also play a role. So if duration is more, the general adaptation syndrome may be. Another model is cognitive appraisal model. This simply means ki how we interpret the situation, how we give the meaning to the situation. If we are in a stressful situation or whatever situation, so we may interpret is a very stressful or we may take it a challenge. So this is called appraisal, the way we are giving meaning to the situation. So the personal interpretation of a situation that ultimately influences the extent to which the situation is perceived as stressful. Like the board exams are same for all students, but some students feel lots of stress. Why? Because they think this is very important for them to clear the exam with good marks. So as the individual faces a stressful situation, they carry out cognitive appraisal of the situation in terms of primary and secondary appraisal. Primary appraisal is done on the basis of the negative effect of the stress on the physical and psychological aspects of the individuals, whereas the secondary appraisal is done on the basis of whether the individual possesses adequate resources to deal with the stressful situation and avoid its detrimental effect. The reaction of an individual will depend on both primary and secondary appraisals. Individual differences exist in the way in which the cognitive appraisal is carried out. So, if you appraise any situation negatively, it may cause stress, lots of stress. If you interpret the situation, if you give meaning to the situation in positive manner, it will not cause stress. So you can see this in this slide also, like a stressor. Primary appraisal stress is interpreted if it is dangerous or not. Then danger is perceived, no danger. If if there is no danger, then no problem. If the danger is perceived, then the secondary appraisal or one's own resources are analyzed. If resources are sufficient, if you think yes, you can manage, there will be no problem. Then there is no problem. You will not feel stress. But if you feel that the resources are insufficient, if you feel that there is less time and the exams are approaching, and you cannot and there is lots of things you have not read incomplete, you have to complete, and in that shorter period of time you cannot complete those things, so it means you perceive that your resources are insufficient. So if the resources are insufficient, you may feel stress. Stress is experienced. Then you may use coping and you may reappraise that. So coming to another model, person environment fit model called PE fit. So this model proposed by French Harrison and Kaplan in 1982. Assumption of this model is what individual differences exist with regard to needs and abilities. So stress is created when there is a misfit between the demands that an individual is exposed to and the resources that he or she possesses. So demand and the supply. So an employee who is well prepared for one of the important presentations in his or her organization will look at this as an opportunity and not threat, and thus will not experience any significant stress. But if the demand of the environment are high and the employee feels that he or she does not possess adequate resources or abilities or skills to carry out the presentation, then he or she will experience stress. So it is very simple. Okay, so now let us see the psychodynamic model. So you all be knowing about the psychodynamic theory. So this theory focuses on how stress can result due to unconscious personality factors in an individual. So you all might be knowing about the Sigmund Freud, who has given uh, different theories and explanation about the ego and superego, conscious and conscious subconscious, and defense mechanisms, sleep dream interpretations. So, and he has not only given theory, he has developed intervention module on the basis of those theories. So Freud always talks about unconscious and defense mechanisms. So Freud described signal anxiety and traumatic anxiety. So what is signal anxiety? Signal anxiety occurs when an external and objective danger that is consistent with the relationship between a stressor and the strain is present. So traumatic anxiety is related to the repressed sexual drive and instincts that are aggressive within the individual. So traumatic anxiety can lead to development of psychopathy also. So, and here ideas that are conflicting are converted to ideas that pose no harms. So if there is a conflict, then there is a problem. The energy emerging from the conflict may lead to strain in terms of physical symptoms experienced by the individuals. Further, we can also discuss about the explanation of stress given by Levinson that is based on the psychoanalytic theory like Freud. So if you know about the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious, the explanation given by the Freud. So he will be. So let us see how Levinson explained this. So according to Levinson, ego, ideal, and self-image interact with uh, each other and lead to stress. So, so what is ego ideal? So expression of an individual's perfect self. So ideal self, we can say. So the type of ego which we want to project ourselves in the society, it should be accepted. And that's why we do not share most of the things even with our close friends. Why? Because we think if we share such things with the friends, they will not accept us then, or they will think he is not a good person. Another one is self-image. The way an individual perceives himself or herself, negatively or positive, is builds his or her self-image. So stress is an outcome of the gap between the ego ideal and self-image. Suppose I want to show that I am a very honest person. Okay, and but I have the desires to take bribe, so it will create stress for me. Why? Because I have to project myself that I am honest, but what I am doing, I am taking bribes. Okay, so it will cause internal. I may not be aware about such a stress, but this stress may lead to certain physical and psychological symptoms in me. For example, anxiety, hypertension, diabetes, all sorts of things. Coming to genetic constitutional theory. So this theory focuses on the how stress is resisted and coped with the help of genotype and phenotype. Genotype denotes the genetic constitution of the individual, and phenotype is the physiological characteristics of the individual. So this model, basically stress diathesis model, is used by the clinical psychologists mainly because they think if whatever problem the person is having, it is it come the problem comes due to stress. So if there is no stress, there won't be any problem. But diathesis means that every individual has tendency or has probability of developing one or another type of illnesses, but it will not manifest till the stress will be high. So stress will work as a precipitating factor. You might be knowing that the factors which precipitate the illness or symptoms. So diathesis stress model focuses on the role of both genetics and environment in determining whether the individual will experience stress or not. This theory also proposes that heredity and environment go hand in hand and complement each other. For instance, an individual may experience breathing problem when he is exposed to prolonged high level of stress. But in absence of any stress, he may not experience any breathing problem, despite of the breathing problem being genetic in nature. Now let us see the last section of this presentation, Unit 3, factors contributing to stress proneness. There are certain factors which make us prone to develop stress. So we'll see here what is stress proneness, what are these factors contributing to stress proneness, like type A personality. I told you that we'll discuss in later slides. Hostility, perfectionism, procrastination, learned helplessness, and moderators of stress. So factors contributing to stress proneness and moderators of stress. So you should understand about these two. Individual differences exist in the way people deal with stress. That's why in the same family, two brothers, two sisters, or brother and sisters, they deal differently their academic stress. Some could be more prone to stress than others due to varied factors. Stress proneness is a tendency of a person to take more stress. Stress resistance, tendency of a person to take less stress. Such individuals are less likely to experience stress. But it doesn't mean that those who are stress resistant are good. And sometimes we have to perceive the stress as it is. Factors contributing to stress proneness. We'll see one by one these factors like type A personality, hostility, perfectionism, procrastination, and learned helplessness. First, we are going to discuss about type A personality. Personality as person's enduring set of habits of thinking, feeling, and acting. We all know that this is personality. So, personality traits determine the response of an individual towards stress and how he copes with it. Type A personality is often linked to high level of stress. Individuals with type A personality are more prone to varied physical and psychological problems due to stress. Individuals with type B personality display lower stress reactivity. So let us see that okay, what are the quality of type A personality. So one quality is vigilant. They remain vigilant. So individuals are in a hurry to achieve certain objectives. They often like competition. They are highly alert. Display perfectionism. They want everything should be perfect. They want to achieve much more than it may be possible within a certain period of time or certain time frame. So they will set lots of goals, which is not possible in during that time period. But they want to finish. They want to complete those goals within that time frame, and due to that, they will have lots of um, frustration, and due to perfectionism also, they will not able to complete their job within that time frame. So they are also likely to be very irritable. They lack patience. And if you say ki you have to wait for 2 hours, so it will be very difficult for them, or they get angry very faster. Another quality is state insecurity. So they are like feel always insecure, and they are not aware that they are feeling insecure. So likely to stem from their low self-esteem, this insecurity, and constantly compare themselves with others, and they compare with the other person, those who are high achievers, so they find themselves okay, they are not so capable, and they are having low self-esteem. But they are not aware that they are not. They find themselves very capable. They perceive themselves. So they find themselves to be inferior in their own eyes, constantly strive to enhance their self esteem, very high expectation from themselves, and highly critical about self. So if they do even a silly mistake, they can't tolerate themselves. Oh, how can I do this? Huh? I shouldn't. I must punish myself. Okay, such type of trait. Urgency of time. This is the core quality of type A personality. So there is always shortage of time, yeah, because they are having lots of work. Such individuals want to do many things within a certain period of time, as we have discussed. They are in constant hurry to get things done. And if they are boss, so they will put lots of pressures on their subordinates. No, they have to do that, and sometimes the targets are impractical. It is not possible to complete those targets within that time limit. But the pressure, the person will put so much pressure, the boss will put so much pressure on the employee that it will be very difficult for them to cope up to work in that organization for longer period of time. If they work, keep continuing working in that organization, they may develop lots of psychological and physical illnesses due to constant stress. So such type A personality people, they think faster, plan faster, and carry out activities at a faster pace. So it will be very difficult for the others to walk with the person. They also engage in polyphasic thinking and behavior. They are considered as hyperaggressive. So this is denoted by dominating behavior without any regard to how others feel or any regard for their rights. This aggressiveness may also stem from low self-esteem. So what happens? They think कि if someone is not able to complete the target within time limit, the person is useless. The person has no worth. So the type A personality boss may behave very rudely with the others due to his aggressiveness. And it is there in the personality. If the person has done a good job, but if there is a minor mistake, like the person has forget to put the comma or full stop, on that point also the person may create lots of problem for the employee. How can you do this? This is such type of, you can't care. It means you are careless. How can you work in such a company? So such type of things will create lots of problem for the employee. Free floating hostility. This is also a very associated quality of type A personality. So more likely to perceive others negatively, they do not trust others and will be suspicious of them. Drive towards self-destruction. The lifestyle takes a toll on them. They often seek escapism. They may display lower satisfaction with regard to job, health, home, and life. They may also experience lack of energy, may experience more affective tension and symptoms of distress. So you can imagine if the person is having high on type A personality traits, it will be very difficult for others, those who are staying with the person or working with the person or working under that person. Another thing is hostility. It is characterized by an attitude that is skeptical or cynical, reoccurring arousal of anger and manifestation of anger in terms of aggressive behavior. This is the irritability and anger experienced by the individual who otherwise seem perfectly normal. May be experienced in simple events in life, often engage in blaming others. It affects social relationships in longer run. So if the person is hostile, it will be very difficult for others to maintain relationship with that person. Another trait is perfectionism. So expectations that an individual may have from self and others or both. This is also quality of type A personality. So these expectations are demanding in nature, which seldom leaves chance for compromise. So there are two types of perfectionism. Internal perfectionism, that is expectations from self. So if the person is internally perfectionist, the person punishes himself a lot because for each and every mistake the person will give punishment. Whereas external perfectionism, expectation from others, is they often find faults in others and are never satisfied with how others work. Then procrastination, this also causes lots of stress. Procrastination is not doing things, activities on time and keeping them for later, delaying the things. Lazy. Other persons may they say the person you are lazy, you are not doing the things on time. So this can be because the things or those activities are viewed as not appealing or pleasant or difficult. So if you might have seen certain children in your uh, home that they, if you say something or if the parents say something good, okay, I'll do in the evening, I'll do tomorrow. So they try to delay the thing, and they know even the homework. They first I'll go to play, then I'll do work. So they delay the work even though they know that they have to complete it. Without completion of this work they will be rebuked or given punishment in the school. Still they procrastinate. So procrastination either results from fear or it can result from laziness or is it part of that, where the individual develops habit of not putting effort or seeking comfort. It can lead to stress, no doubt. All or nothing thinking, that is also in. So this is an irrational thinking. See, either you have to be topped, or if you are not getting more than 90% mark, it means it is equivalent to fail. So individuals with perfectionism are also not likely to procrastinate. They are also more defensive and choosy about things. They may find it difficult to let go and discard things, thus leading to hoarding, and they may also indulge in overdoing things. Learned helplessness. This concept was given by Seligman, and this concept is very much applied in depression. So let- he has observed how the people are working, how they were given incentives or punishment. If they were not given incentives, so what happens? So he has explained all. Seligman explained all these things very clearly. Tendency to become helpless when frequently faced with events that cannot be controlled. The tendency to interpret bad events as personally caused, part of a permanent pattern and pervasive into all parts of one's life. The tendency to interpret positive events as caused by luck or external forces, temporary and limited to this one aspect. So, what happens? Personalization can be internal or external. Getting less marks in examination may be attributed internally, like not studying hard, or I am not very intelligent, or externally, like teachers were not done good job, they have uh, mm, not impartial, they didn't check my copy carefully. Okay. Permanence. So it can be in terms of either permanent or temporary. For instance, if he scored less mark in the examination, this can either be seen as something that will always happen, or just one event or setback in path of success. So, like, so the person student can see it like, okay, this happens in exam. Someone pass, someone fails. So, what is problem in this? Another thing related to this is pervasiveness. Okay, whether an interpretation is related to one or multiple dimensions of life. For example, I scored less marks in one subject but scored well in others. So this is called pervasive. So now let us see the moderators of stress. Moderators means they when there is a stress, these factors may increase or decrease the intensity of stress. Okay, moderators play an important role in the relationship between the stress and corresponding reactions. These may lead to individuals experiencing higher or lower stress. Locus of control, social support, gender and culture, hardiness, optimism, and pessimism. So let us see the what is locus of control. Proposed by Rotter in 1954, the belief system possessed by an individual about attribution of the outcome of to events, objects, people outside his control. This could be internal or external. Internal locus of control generates less stress. Individuals with internal locus of control perceive stressful situations as a challenge and not as a threat. Hardiness, denoting a likeness for challenges, having a strong sense of commitment and control is basically hardiness. Individuals having high hardiness are optimistic. They see a stressful situation as an opportunity to grow. They also put in hard work because they enjoy doing so. Okay, so they are basically considered as workaholics. So they put lots of efforts, they put lots of energy. We all know social support. If there is a lots of social support, whatever stress is there, we may not perceive in that much intensity, and we can tolerate that stress. We can manage that stress. But if there is no social support, it will be very difficult to manage those stress. So adequate social support helps dealing with the stress in a better way. Social support can be in form of material gift, finance, food, etc. For example, I have taken a loan or I need money, and if there is a social support, I may borrow money from my friends, relatives, anyone can give it to me. But if there is no one, then it will be a problem for me. So it could also be emotional in nature. It lowers stress reactivity of an individual. So that's why we should always try to work to develop social support. So we should be supportive to others, and we should learn the skills to develop support from the others. So what happens sometimes due to uh, some problems, some psychological issues, we do not take social support. So we stop taking social support. We stop going to others, meeting our friends. So that's why it, it becomes a problem in managing psychiatric patients. Optimism and pessimism. So this, if we are optimistic, we can manage the stress, whereas pessimism may affect it more. So optimistic individuals are found to be able to deal with stress adequately. Optimism can also be related to resilience that helps individuals to bounce back from stressful situations. So if there is lots of stress, the person could not manage it, but still the person can bounce back. Pessimistic individuals can get affected by stress and are likely to develop the psychophysiological disorders. So it means we should be optimistic. If we are pessimistic, we try to see the things in a pessimistic way. So we should keep this thing in mind. So last thing is the gender and culture. Socialization to a great extent may depend on gender as well as culture. This can have an impact on personality, beliefs, and attitude. This can predict the ways to deal and cope with stress.